Hi everybody, this is Dave Barnett with Attract Capital for our monthly webinar. Today's title is The Art of Business Strength Articulation and Raising Debt Capital. It really comes down to when you're trying to bring in a loan, how to make a company sound extraordinary. We've worked with many companies over the years, scores of companies that were rather ordinary sounding businesses, and we had to develop a way of elevating them so that they sounded more extraordinary and more specialized. And in that process, we've developed some information and some tips of how to do this successfully. And it really comes down to when you are looking for debt capital, when you're applying for a loan, particularly a cash flow loan, you really need to stand out from the rest of the market. And you really need to work hard on presenting yourself to the lender in a powerful way. You need to establish your presence in the market. And you need to establish your presence in a strong way. And because if you don't, nobody else is going to do it for you. And it's so easy for lenders, if they receive your package, to just say, oh, you're a manufacturing company. Oh, you're just a healthcare company. Oh, you're just a distribution company. And not think about all the interesting, super specialized things that might be going on within your business model. So it is really important to stand out and establish your positioning. And a lot of times when I think about teaching this to people, if you think about in the world of sports, there's this field called sabermetrics. And sabermetrics is the analysis of information about players and their performance in various roles in whatever sport they happen to be in. So it could be 20 different sabermetric dimensions in baseball. There could be 50 different in basketball. It might measure how good you are at rebounding. It might measure how good you are at running the court, how good you are at guarding somebody shorter or bigger. But what it does is it makes every aspect of the performance very statistical and very measurable, so that when you're talking about the performance of a player, you're not just saying he's a good player or he's a great player or he's an average player. You can really back it up with a lot of statistical information. And that's similar to how we've learned to help our clients articulate their business strengths in a powerful way. A lot of our clients, when they come to us, use just a very simple way of describing their business. For example, they might say, we're a trucking company, or, we're a check company, or we're a technology company, because they've been in the business, and that's sort of an easy thing for them to say. They understand their niche. They know where they are in the industry ecosystem, so they can use one word, kind of shorthand ways of explaining what their company does. But when it comes to taking that step and going out in the market and searching for debt capital, you really need to take a step back and elaborate on it. And what you really need to do is think, what's really going on here in the business? What are all the processes? So are we designing something? Are we producing something? Are we distributing something? Are we servicing something? What's involved in the entire process chain in our business model? And you really need to be able to think about that, and not in a one-word answer. So I'm a trucking company or I'm a manufacturing company, but in a more general process description. And then when you get into the more general process description, it then becomes very important for you to focus in on areas where you're specialized. So take a company that might design a product. Are you custom? Can you design 1 million different products? Do you have a design methodology? Do you have a fast track ability to design certain things? Same thing with a manufacturer. If you're a manufacturer, do you have a very high volume manufacturing capability? Can you do things on a one-off basis very quickly? Can you achieve very precise specifications? So it really comes down to what is really going on in terms of the process of what you're doing, irrespective of the product. So put the product aside, okay? You're originating business somehow. You are creating the product, you're producing the product, you're delivering the product. So frame it that way. And then how are you specialized? And when I think about specialization, it comes down to you can be custom, you can be more efficient, you can be faster, you could be more bespoke, you could be all these different things. And when you take the specialization, you connect it to the actual processes, you get a much richer, more dimensional way of describing what the company does. So instead of saying, like the CEO of Domino's Pizza, I once heard the CEO of Domino's Pizza saying, we're not in the pizza business. We're a technology, custom designer, and high volume manufacturer, and agile fulfillment company. And pizza is just the product that they've happened to converge on to run through all those process steps that have all that intrinsic specialization. So that's how they kind of see themselves. But then so you start with the process. What are all the steps? You then get to the specialization, faster, cheaper, custom, broader product line. And then the third piece of it that really hammers home your business strength articulation is being able to provide some statistics that describes the process that is specialized. For example, you might say, we are faster than the competition. But instead of saying just faster, say, well, we're 25% faster than the competition. Or you might say, we've got a big product line. Why don't you just state how many products are in your product line? Because people will be more impressed with the number. Or if you have an ability, if you have an ability to have two products, if you sell a bundle of products, you could talk about how you have a bundle of products and you're able to provide distribution for the entire bundle and you're able to provide high levels of customer service. All of these things, when you can frame your specialization of your functional processes in a statistical way, you're providing objective reinforcement for the qualitative statement that you're making. So for example, if you say, well, I have a great company, okay? We have a great company and we're a great company because we've been around for a long time and we're a great company. You know, a lender's likely to say, yeah, everybody says they have a great company. We really don't believe that, you know, because we've made a lot of loans to a lot of companies that thought they were really, really great. And some of them ended up as bad loans. So it's incumbent upon you to explain it in a process way with the level of specialization and then to drill it down more granularly to the statistical, descriptive side of it. And if you can combine all of those ways of describing your business strengths, then you really are talking about the right things because you're providing really a theoretical way, a conceptual way for a lender to understand your business. When you are explaining your business in a more conceptual way, where you're really driving home the specialization and providing measurable statistics, the lender's likely to think that that's the way you think about business. You think about it in a more layered way. You think about it in terms of more variables. You think about it in terms of statistical information informing your operational decisions. And those are things that lenders like. So it's a more robust, it's a more holistic way of describing what you do. So that's only part of it. So that's the content. What are you describing? You know, describing your business and getting the content right is the first step of articulating your business strengths in a powerful way. The second step of it is making sure that the way you're articulating it and the frame and the format that you're using to articulate it is the right format. So I have seen probably 10,000 business plans in my career. I've been at this for almost 30 years, and I've seen a lot of different deals. I've seen a lot of different presentation styles. I have seen 50-page written documents. I've seen 10-page long PowerPoint slides. I've seen videos. I've seen Facebook pitches for companies that were looking to bring in financing. I've seen every possible format that you could use in terms of a presentation to try to bring in financing. And I have to say that there's been a real switch over the last 5-10 years to using PowerPoint. And I just don't think, well, PowerPoint is good if you're going to have a meeting and you want to get some key talking points out and you're there to provide sort of additional color. I think hands down the best way to articulate your business strengths strongly is by using a written, prose-based confidential information memorandum. I repeat, a written confidential information memorandum. Not a PowerPoint, Not something that's just a bunch of different graphs, not something that has like lines going all over the place or all these different charts with all these different colors, but written word complemented by financial tables and condensed financial statements. If you have very strong prose narrative, and if you have frameworks, financial frameworks, and if you have financial statements, you pretty much have everything you need. So why do I think a prose-based confidential memorandum is the best format? I think it's the best format because you, as the company and as the writer, you get to control the narrative. You get to tell a story, and you can tell a story much more powerfully through a written-based document with words than you can through a PowerPoint document where you're providing like bullet points of fragmentary thought. I think prose-based critique style writing is much better than just these little thoughts and these tables that you're going to have on a PowerPoint. And what does it get you? Well, it gets you an ability to weave a storyline and to have that storyline guide the lender along to touch upon the key points of the business, the key strengths of the business that you want them to know. And it also is easier to not only to sell them on the business if you have a kind of a prose-based text, but it's also easier to educate them on the business because you can be more creative when you have a written-based document. And so what do I mean by being more creative? Well, there are certain aspects of every company that you want to emphasize, and there's other things that you don't want to emphasize. So when you control the narrative and you can tell the story through the customers, or you can tell the story through the products, or you can tell the story through the technology platform, it's a much better way to do it. And it's chances are when this person, just from the simple fact that you're sending him an email and he's going to get this document, if it's a well thought out, coherent story about your growth, it's going to be easier for him to understand it. And the key is that when you're writing the confidential information memorandum, you want to use business descriptions that are universal and that the lender will really relate to. So everybody relates to companies that have dominant market share, or companies that are a one-stop shop, or companies that are moving up the food chain and they might be a distributor and they might want to get into the product business, or they're in an IT business and they want to become a software developer. So everybody understands vertical integration, horizontal integration, acquisitions, land grabs. There's lots of different strategic ways that lenders come to understand businesses. So when you're writing it all out, it gives you the opportunity to bring all these different concepts into it. I also think when you're writing a SIM, it's very important to have established frameworks. Established frameworks are bridge analysis for actual to pro forma EBITDA, using top 10 customers or top 10 suppliers in a separate graph, having line of business breakdown so you can see line of business by revenue growth and by gross margins. So you really want to use these financial frameworks to expose the business model, to expose the customers, to expose the products and the different lines of business. And frankly, what I have found over the years is that when you do use a written medium, you're forced to think and you're forced to come up with, okay, well, this is what I want to say qualitatively about the business. But what do I have to back it up? What fact and what statistic do I have to corroborate the qualitative assertion that I want to make? So it's almost self-reinforcing when you are writing out a business plan. And it's something that leads to a deeper level of thought, and it leads to you having sort of discoveries about the business and discoveries about strategic insights to the business that might be very valuable to your client when they do read it. So it really comes down to, when you're trying to articulate your business strengths, you really want to make sure that you're focusing on strengths that are based on functional processes, where you're really honing in on what's specialized about that process, and that you're using a descriptive language to reinforce it. So if those things are all aligned, you've got a very powerful content story to make. Then, when it comes to actually putting it all together, you want to write it up in a confidential memorandum. It shouldn't be longer than 20 pages. Hopefully it should be closer to 15 pages. But think about it. You want to present all this information in a way that isn't hyperbolic, that isn't exaggerated, but where you're making assertions and you're backing it up with information so that it looks like it's balanced. Because the more balanced the memorandum is, the more likely that the lender is to see that you have strengths in your business and that you're a business that they want to do business with. The final aspect of being able to articulate your business strengths is that when you can write a really high quality memorandum and a high level description, strategical description of your company, then that suggests to the lender that there's a lot of higher level thinking going on at your business and that you understand professionalism and just have a way of engaging with outside parties in a sophisticated way. It creates a bit of a halo effect. So even if you are a company that you think you have the most mundane product and you think it's a very boring story, you really need to give yourself more credit than that. You need to think about what it is you're really doing, come up with statistical ways to describe it, and find somebody to add to your team that can write a story that will frame it properly and will captivate your audience. Because every company, and it's our fervent belief, every company has a great story to tell. Because if you're in business, and if you've been in business for a long time, you're doing something very right. And particularly middle market businesses. Middle market businesses are usually doing 3 or 4 things within their functional processes extremely well. And they don't give themselves enough credit because most middle market businesses, they're usually, they have their nose to the grindstone. They don't come up to kind of look down on their business as much because they're usually working really hard in the business as opposed to being on top of the business looking down. So next time you want to articulate your business strengths, take the time, do it right, choose the right words, and put it in a written sen. This is Dave Barnett with Attract Capital, and if you have any questions, you can always email me at dbarnett@attractcapital.com or feel free to call at 631-689-5713. Take care.